Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Things We Know. It's been a couple of weeks again since we recorded last, and I missed you.
I really missed you. You look fantastic. I
Thank you.
missed
I
you
am
more than you know.
free. I have a brand new hip. I'm so excited. You guys
Is
have
it made
heard
of
other,
titanium?
somebody asked me that the other day, and I don't know. I mean, it's metal. I know that. So I just keep calling myself bionic, and they're like, ooh. Yeah, so wait, this is coming out end of June. So you guys have heard plenty of pods since I had my surgery, but this is the first time we are recording since surgery. And yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's everything everybody told me it was gonna be. I'm walking unassisted and I am in no pain. I'm a little stiff still because my muscle is still, I think a little swollen and things like that. But yeah, it's amazing.
Mm,
It's amazing. So it was a rough
I'm
go. And someday we may do a pod on post-op depression, which is a new information for me. But otherwise it was, yeah, went well.
you reminded me of that when you were sharing that with me and with your post because I remember reading that and then remember going through that with my dad, especially when people have heart surgery. But
Oh,
I
I
think it's probably
bet.
anything major. But
Yeah.
after any open heart surgery, that like depression is a real thing to like they prep people for that it
They
can
did not
be.
prep me. And I'm not gonna say I'm angry about it. I mean, there's lots to prep, but I am curious about it. I have not had a follow-up yet. And so I'm just gonna ask, why didn't anybody tell me that was a thing? Because as much as I know I have had moments where I felt depressed in my life, this was what I assume depression feels like. Like nothing
Yeah.
sounded good. I didn't want to listen to music. I was crying uncontrollably. Um, I had two bad days and then the rest were kind of better. But
Mm.
yeah, no clue. But the minute we told the guy that is our like nurse follow-up that we have access to for 90 days, that's the first thing he said. Cause we were wondering like, is some of the medicine I'm on, does that cause depression? And but yeah, between being completely sliced open and being on tons of medication with as somebody that doesn't take very much medication. I mean, I was only on pain meds for like 2 days. I got myself off of those, but um
Such a badass.
yeah, I don't know. I have a high pain tolerance. And so when I was as in as much pain as I was near the end, I thought this is bad because I am in this much pain.
Yeah.
So, anyways, but it's over. Ta-da, huzzah. So happy.
Ta-da. You look
Yay.
fantastic. I
Thank you.
feel I feel a level of like relaxation and playfulness for you.
Yeah.
Like I feel it. It's maybe because you're in like, sleeveless and it feels summery right there, but
Yeah.
that's so
Yeah.
great. I'm so
Thank
glad.
you. Thank you.
Um well, I missed you.
I missed you too.
So our topic, crisis
Yeah,
of
so
confidence.
this was actually my suggestion, and I came in with this idea probably about a month ago. And so it's crisis of confidence. And I thought it was a good ending to this month because we talked about commencement. We had the interview with Chrissy G and Lady Shark and all the opportunities that you can grab out there. We did starting over last week. And so this feels like that next little piece that can happen. And I think crisis of confidence happens a lot when you're first starting out or first making changes. The reason I brought it up is here I am 7 years into my coaching practice. And all of a sudden, I was just having these thoughts around like, fuck, who's ever going to hire me again?
And what was that coming up around? Like,
I think so. I think it's a couple of things for me personally. I think it was tied to my pain. I
yeah.
mean, you and I were talking about this. We're gonna presence for anybody that might be watching YouTube. Carrie's in some pain right now, and so
Yeah.
it's pain. I don't think we spent enough time talking about chronic pain when we did that. That was only a 25-minute session
It was
pod, and I think it's
the
because I
exact opposite.
yeah, exactly. And I thought, I'm sure it's because I was in pain, but like, I do think pain colored so much of my life, especially those last couple of months. And, um, because nothing was working to help my pain. And then I had to, of course, getting closer to surgery, I had to be off anything that could help me with pain. So I think it was tied to that a little bit. but also just, as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
this too, right? Like I'm a year out from working for a company. So for a year now, I've been doing just transformation for real. And of course the pod,
Mhm.
but the pod just is like candy.
And for anyone listening, like Transformation for Real is Lisa's coaching business.
Yes, thank you.
That's what,
Thank
yeah.
you. Yes, thanks for
Someone
clarifying.
might not know that who's listening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true. Good point. Yeah. So I've just been doing my own coaching practice, transformation for real. And I have plenty of clients, but I have space and I've always had space. And so, it's been a couple of months since I got a new client. And with my pain and with my abundance of time to think about it and all these things, I was just having this moment, this crisis of confidence. Like, God, should I be going out and getting another job or blah, blah, blah? Or is this, am I
Mhm.
going to be able to continue to do this and make this work? And my logical brain said, you've got 7 years of proof that, yeah, you can.
Right.
Um, but I guess my point is it doesn't matter how long you're in. And I can imagine we could talk to people who've been doing this for 20 years, 30 years, and they're going to tell you that every once in a while, you and I call the critter brain or whatever can just really take a hold and there can be that crisis. And I always present on Facebook like everything's unicorns and rainbows. I know I don't really, but
You don't.
but you know, everybody thinks of me as being so confident. And so I just wanted to put out there that even somebody who is pretty confident, and I am, your legs can be knocked out from underneath you.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because you're not unicorns and rainbows. You're a very positive person who's also incredibly real. And I do think we appreciate versions of this in each other. Like no
Yeah,
matter what's going on, we will always gravitate towards like what's going to make us laugh or what's going to make us feel.
true.
And like we love that about each other because we're honest about it.
Right.
I think that you're incredibly like I was just with Beth yesterday saying what I like about we were talking about our young people in social media. So
Mm,
what I like about what Lisa models for her kids, and I don't know how they are in social media. I see a little bit of it, but I
yeah.
mean, I don't know, is that you're genuine, that
Mm,
you're not at there like everything's great, but you do spread positivity by being genuine. And by admitting that, it draws people in so that
yeah.
they can feel that gives them permission to feel whatever they're feeling.
Yeah.
That's positive.
Well, that's a good point. Yes, that's true. Again, I around
Mm.
the surgery, I put out there, what kind of pain I was still in. I talked about the post-op depression. I had several people respond saying, "Oh my God, I had that,"
That's a
and
thing. That's
that's
a
a
thing.
thing,
Yeah.
right? And I think the thing I was most proud of is one woman who's a friend of mine say, "I am having a big surgery this month. This summer. This was really helpful. I don't know if it's a hip replacement, but it was a surgery." And that's why I do put out that kind of stuff. But it's also why I wanted to talk about this today because I think it just needs to be presenced that everybody will go through crisis of confidence at some
Mm.
point. Like,
Oh my
when was
gosh.
your
At
last one of
least
these?
once. Oh my
At
gosh.
least.
My last one of these is probably this week,
Oh,
where it's like, I go through it very often
okay.
as like I go through it often. Like when you and I brought this up and I was like distracted and thinking of you going like, this will be so interesting because one of the things that is your brand, one of the things that I notice with people who worked with you is their confidence goes through the roof. So it'll be really important and interesting for people to hear how you take care of yourself and do that genuinely because you are that's something I notice about anyone who works with you is like that's what they'll say. Like,
Really?
like we've had Tressa on here, like a lot of your clients, like that it's not that you gave them their gifts, they have their gifts,
Right.
but and that's something we both get to enjoy as parents, as coaches, as friends to people who let us support them is it's
Yeah.
never about us, it's about like how to help people really stand in that. But
Yeah.
we need that too for ourselves. And
Right.
where I go through it, you're familiar with is, and it happened like just last Saturday, or like I've had, like Lisa just referenced my pain, I've had a lot of weird menopausal things that have been happening, and then like that seems to be manifesting into some really weird upper body pain that's been debilitating. Like I've had to cancel things, and like we couldn't record yesterday. I had to reschedule a client, and I I have huge issues around that because of parenting someone who has seizures. So I'm really like I've worked hard with, friends and coaches like you on, coming up with the language that's really genuine for people that say, hey, I offer a flexible rescheduling policy because I might need it. And that has been
Yeah.
helpful for me to feel better and not go, oh, I can't be as successful or reliable as I want to be because of all these
Right.
things. When you and I are building a business, it's always my fear. When I'm going into business with new clients, and the truth is, you're right. The truth is, like, I have been bringing on clients and I am working with them and it's going well, but I get really in my head about things when
Mm.
I can't show up fully, or if I can't guarantee I can show up fully. So every single time I've ever had to do it, which is so much less than you would imagine, I set up a lot of backups and then I don't need it. It's so much less than I worry about.
Yep.
Whenever I have to, then I'm like, well, why should I? Like, I can't even be professional. It's like
Yeah.
those things happen, and then I luckily have enough, internalized coaching and great experiences with people in my life to walk myself through that. What's true here? That helps. But it is a thing that, yeah, when you're working for yourself, you can fall into it really quickly.
Yeah.
You can fall into like it's not the way I think it should look. Therefore, I'm just gonna back up, but I
Yeah.
don't, because it's not what we do when we work for ourselves. But it is something that I have to face often.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of my clients, because I'm really focused sort of on helping women build businesses or advance in their career. Um, and Tress is a perfect example of like one of the reasons she hired me is she's like, I don't have a boss. I want somebody to
Mm-hmm.
kind of be there to support me and let me run ideas by and coach me through situations and so forth. And I don't have a boss.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I have to, as an entrepreneur, you have to do all that stuff yourself. And if there isn't anyone there to sort of tell you on a regular basis you're doing a good job, that's where, you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of lose it a little. So
Well, that's a great point. I'd never thought about that before, because you and I both have great experience in former careers
yeah,
managing a lot of people. And
yeah,
I do see in a lot of cases where, especially where we both coach people who work for themselves, I see that great opportunity to be the kind of leader that I was trained to be, or the
yeah,
kind of leader that like I had, or so, like I see that as like an opportunity, like, oh, I'm really going to hold space and hold you capable and stretch you with a lot of love.
yeah,
And that's a beautiful way that she puts it, because that's exactly how I see you. And I want to point out, like, both of these things, like in my case, it was like crisis of confidence that I could do what I like, that I can keep my word. And in yours, it
right,
was like well, do I need to get a job? Like, will there be? But neither of it is in our abilities, which we've also
correct,
probably had. Like, I've had that too when I've
yeah,
started something brand new. When I remember when I first got certified, actually, even when I was getting my master's degree. But so, like, in anything I've ever done, which is super normal, everyone, when you're starting something new, you're like, okay, I'm just afraid to start because I wish I had more experience. And people would always say to me, you just got to do it,
right,
just do it. And I'm like,
right.
so there is something here that we will continue to touch on in this episode about, you have to have the courage to like try and not be good at it to get to the place where you're confident. And that's not what, like, this I was going through this week. It's not that I know that if I get on the phone with my client, it's going to be great, but like, can I do it in the way that I want to do it, is where I start to, like, where I have to really work on my confidence sometimes when life is getting in the way.
Well, I think in both of our instances, it's around the stories we're telling ourselves, right? Like for me, um, so when you say not being confident, I mean, the last time I can truly remember not being confident was when I became a Weight Watcher leader, because I just didn't think that wasn't something I had aspired to be when I first started.
Right.
And And so I remember that being really nerve-wracking because I had had a couple of amazing leaders. And so I wanted to be that, and over time I became that, and I'm very proud of that. So I think transitioning into being a coach, I had a lot of confidence because I'd been doing it for 14 years. So that, even though it was different and now it was one-on-one and it was this, a different sort of modality, so to speak, I was never not confident. And when I got hired for HCI, I felt good about that. And so it's been a long time since I've felt that about my abilities. But I think because I never sought out to be an entrepreneur in my life, like I would have never in a million. And this has truly been the first year where I solely have been. I was only an entrepreneur for a short amount of time before I got hired from HCI with ACI. And so I think in some ways, even though this is 7 years in and I've always had clients and blah, 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 I think I'm hitting this 1 year mark as a solo entrepreneur. That's the only thing I'm doing, and so I still feel like a beginner in that aspect. And so that's the story
Yeah.
I'm telling myself, right? Whereas your story is more like, oh my gosh, I've got all these things going on. Can I manage all this? And yet you always have. But in a moment of crisis of confidence, it doesn't matter what you've always done. You only believe the crap, the
Yeah, you
bad
start
parts.
to feel like a fight, like a phony, or like I'm not professional enough, or something
Right.
that's
Right.
actually not what's outward facing. Same with you. And when you say that, it makes me think generationally, we both really understand that some confidence comes from employment, right?
Yeah,
Like that's just a
totally.
generational energetic thing. So it is something to constantly pay attention to, right? And we do. And what's interesting is both of us are talking about this because it's come up for us professionally. But when we think about like spouses, friends, kids, and clients,
Mm-hmm.
even, um, neither one of us tend to. I mean, again, I project this on you. We all have it at certain points, maybe, but like we don't struggle a ton with social confidence. But we have so
Right.
many people we coach or love or know or observe that
Yeah.
do. And that does spill into their professional confidence. Or,
Yeah.
like the ways I can relate to that are, I mean, everyone I know goes through a breakup, like they lack confidence in, like
Yeah.
they might take it personally, and they go through like a period of building confidence and courage, to put themselves out there again, or feel like they're lovable, right? But
Yeah. Totally.
also people just having the confidence to interact with new people. Like I went to a potluck the other day. I didn't know very many people, and I kind of felt shy. Like I just was
Yeah.
like, I'll just go back and talk to my mom and Griffin, and
Yeah.
and then I like did it, I needed to go put my thing. And then I started asking people questions, and it was like, what is that? Is it a lack of confidence? What is it? Like and they were all like these really hip 30-year-olds. It was like our friend Beth and Kevin's neighbors. And so part of it was like, it wasn't that I was going, I'm not interesting. It was just more like we got to find a place to, I don't know. I didn't have the ease that I'm used to having.
Yeah.
It just took me a little bit. And so I think about that, like, oh, some people live with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the crisis happens when you don't expect it. Like, it's like, oh, this isn't me, or this is new. And now all of a sudden I feel small again.
No, I think that's a perfect way of putting it. And then that's why it's a crisis, right? Because it's if
Mhm.
you're somebody who is challenged by going out and meeting new people. I mean, I'm like you. As much as networking has been a huge part of building my business, I'm out kind of looking for some new networking groups, and I don't want to go walk into a room full of people I don't know. And so then I have to have that conversation with myself of like, okay, you're only new the first time, and and I've gotten my original networking group. I've got amazing friends from, that I just
Mhm.
love and adore, and we've had several of them on here. But it's that so I expect that doesn't feel like a crisis, right? I expect that when I walk into a new room, I'm not going to love that. But you're right. I think that's where it came in. It's not just it's a crisis because I was unexpected. I'm like, why am I feeling this
Mhm.
way after 7 years? You know, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good way of putting it. I think it's the unexpected aspect that makes it feel like a crisis. Is it really a crisis? No.
Right.
Gaza's a crisis. This is just me being like whiny about I want more clients, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's the when things get hard or things aren't
Yeah.
going the way we expected, you
Yeah.
know. I was
What
confident
other,
they were. They will.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. So you came up with some different reasons some different triggers on why somebody might feel what might happen. I mean, for me, I do think the trigger was pain.
Yes.
I feel less concerned about that. I mean, I would like to work for another company. I really enjoy working for companies. And I think that is not me falling. I would never get rid of transformation for real. And the pod is
I was gonna
top of
say
my
for
list.
me.
No, believe me, I have worked this out. Like I am not working anywhere where I can't have Tuesdays for my private clients and Thursdays for the pod. But I would like to work for another company. I miss that. I like collaboration, and I like that. Luckily, we collaborate, but I mean, I like that on a day-to-day basis as well. But I am not nearly feeling the constraints of that. I mean, it was pain. It was the looking down the barrel of college finances for Charlotte, the emotions of graduation in and of themselves and all that brings in. So there was a lot of emotion and pain at the time that I was having that. I'm not feeling that as much as we record this now, which is good because I'd probably be in tears if I if I was feeling it.
Yeah.
But there are other reasons you might get triggered around and feel that sort of, oh, can I do this?
Yeah. I kind of have someone attached to every single one of these. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah,
But yeah, so let's talk about those. So, okay, a failure or a setback,
yeah,
right? Like, even though if you're if you're someone who's really trying to stay motivated and you know that the most successful people will tell you they have failed more than they have succeeded. And
yep,
the more, especially men too, like especially men right now, but like the more people are more vulnerable and open and sharing that as parents with kids, as leaders with, people they manage, the more we can normalize that, like, this is all part of getting to success. But because
correct.
we are still not there, and there's so much pressure and there's so many high expectations, that anything that feels like a failure or a setback, especially for somebody, and I've noticed this, and I'm married to someone like this, especially for somebody who, like, for so long things like whatever they went for they got, when something isn't happening, like Brendan cannot fix what's going on with Griffin, right?
Yeah.
um that can totally, like, take away the floor for somebody. And like what
Such
I
a good one.
thought was true for me, or
Yeah.
what I relied on in myself, and the reason I'm so logical and I have like these kinds of answers for people, like, I don't have anything here. And
Mm,
so it is, it gets internalized as rejection.
mm,
And then you're afraid to, like, well, what do I know? What can I offer? Right.
yeah.
So, and it's different than the next one, but like it's similar in that, like, ooh, all the old beliefs and I keep saying generational because it's true. Like, this is where you start to tap into like the epigenetics of,
Yeah.
of the stuff that hasn't been worked on. And the good news is, if you work on it, you can disrupt it for
Yeah.
your children, right? But
Yep.
like, this is where all that shit comes up, where you start to make it mean something about you. And one of the things we learned in our training is, it's rarely what actually is happening that causes the pain. It's all the meaning you make around it that causes the pain, right? And
Yeah.
so when you can actually sit back and say, okay, what's true here is that didn't go very well. But am I getting fired? Or even if I'm
Right.
getting fired, am I okay?
Right.
Like
Right.
what is true here? Like, it could be significant. There's no joke that we need income, and if it's a professional thing, or there's no joke that it can be heartbreaking when you can't fix something. But it is also like, there's just facts, and then
Yeah.
there's the interpretations we're making. So that's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So then the next one is criticism or negative feedback. And again, thinking about the people we work with, my clients who are entrepreneurs and they want to go out and they want to build part of their marketing on social media. A lot of times what holds them back is they're afraid that they're going to be trolled or and because we see that, right? And we see people getting doxxed and all the stuff that we see on the media. And so we just assume that's going to happen to us. Well, I mean, I am really out there on social media. And it's only happened to me a couple of times. And it's always never been about me. Whatever they're putting on me is not mine. And so it's now I have the experience and the beliefs and the confidence to be able to understand that it's not about me.
Right.
Someone who is great at this, and I know you love him too. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to say his last name very well, but it's Alok of Benman. Is that how you say his name?
I
Who's
don't
on
know how to say it either.
IG. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about though,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I don't know how to say
And
it either.
he
Yeah.
just he is
Yes.
that's probably they are I'm sorry, I might have just messed his pronouns up, their pronouns up, but um they are a gender fluid
Hmm.
Indian human, gorgeous, wears feminine clothes, and gets so much hate. And they always respond with, I'm so sorry, that you feel this way. And that's your
Hmm.
problem. That's not a me thing. I'm
Right.
sorry you have so much hate in your heart and that you are not. It's a beautiful way of recognizing that um, the it's not about you when there's criticism, especially in a public sphere.
Right. And I think we've talked about this before about extrinsic, like
Hmm.
getting your self-esteem from extrinsic input or intrinsic, right? Like
Yeah.
you need a source from within.
Yeah.
When you're getting it all from out here, it's going to be a rough road
Yeah.
because, like you said, it is a direct reflection of what's going on for them. And that is a muscle that, like I work on with my kids all the time. Compassion for assholes. If someone says something, like consider that has nothing to do with you, but something about what you're saying or doing has stirred something up in them that's really uncomfortable, and they got it on you.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes there's feedback that is about something you did or said that wasn't pleasant to receive, and it's an opportunity to filter it, not swallow it, but filter it and go, oh, like I'm hearing something, and maybe it wasn't delivered easily for me, but I'm hearing something I can work on. So it's not to say all criticism or negative feedback isn't for you, but
Right.
it's not about you.
Right.
And those are
Right.
very different things. Like some of
Yeah.
it's for you to consider and be like, that was hard. I'm really glad they told me. I want to think about that. I want to work on that maybe.
And then it goes back to perhaps there's an appropriate apology and
Right.
amends made.
Exactly. So is it an opportunity? It still might shake your confidence, but it's an opportunity to get even more confident. Or
Yes.
is it something that you like, oh, like they said something about me? Well, we see this all the time when we were coaching students
Yeah.
who were just starting out. Well, someone said something negative or someone didn't say something positive,
Right.
therefore I'm shutting down.
Right.
It's like, no, this is, you can, you're letting it affect your confidence, and I can see it been shaken, but what is it you really want, and what do we need to like source here, what do we need to work on here to help you to build that confidence beyond that, because
Well,
those
the
things are going to
way
happen.
the way you're saying it makes me think of how after when you work out, your muscles break down, they tear, and then they have to rebuild. That's how they get
Oh
stronger. That's what
yeah.
this is reminding me of. I want to share one other funny thing because I just saw this yesterday. It was James Corden interviewing Kristen Chenoweth. And I believe somewhere in my line that I'm related to her because my grandmother's maiden name was Chenoweth. So I just decided somehow we are related.
You have the
Um,
two ends of the range too.
yes, yeah. So he was talking about how when somebody comes up to her and says something mean, she goes, "I forgive you."
That's
And that's
amazing.
their response. "I forgive you." And somebody will be like, "Why? You don't need to forgive me."
Yeah.
"Oh, but I do." So
Yeah.
I thought that was a funny way of responding to criticism, because
Yeah.
you can say what you want about people out in the public sphere, but they take on a lot of crap. And we have seen over in recent years, especially Gen Z and millennial stars who have gotten off social media because they can't, it hurts their mental health so much. So, it's a big one.
I don't know if you and I discussed this off or on. camera, who knows, or
Doesn't matter.
but this term that I just learned from, a friend on Facebook that posted about it, RSD, which is rejection sensitivity disorder. I could have that. I could have that wrong. I don't
That's
pretend to know
interesting.
anything about this, but that it is it's an intensity that I'm sure, I'm just going to guess because of everything we've looked up in that world of, classifiable things. I'm sure there's a lot of disagreement whether it's something or not. Maybe it is.
Right.
I don't know. But it sounded really real, and she had a lot of people relating to it. And there's definitely, the people pleasing parts of me that could relate to some of it. It's like,
Sure.
oh, you don't want to get something wrong, or you don't want to, like, you can take it incredibly personally, or feel like you're not good enough when you get those kinds of things. And so I get it. And I think being able to see that as a crisis of confidence and not a meaning about yourself is progress.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
Again, we're just in a different world than when you and I grew up. I
Yeah.
mean, when you and I grew up, people either said it to your face, they might have said it behind your back, but then you didn't know, and who cares,
Right.
right? But now, the minute somebody has a thought, they can anonymously go on and tell you about it. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't even know who the fuck you are. Why are you up in my grill or on my DMs? Like, back the F off,
Yeah. Well, that's one of the more famous, I think it's on Netflix, and one of the more famous things that Brene Brown spoke about was just, she had this TED talk that went viral about vulnerability. And then what she was seeing was people talking about her appearance, or,
Yeah.
criticizing all kinds of things about her. And then she went into like deep shame, and she's like, I'm a shame researcher. And I was like eating peanut butter and reading
Yeah.
all the mean comments and all that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like, obviously, like, she had that kind of blew things up for her, and she wasn't even asking for it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it can come out of nowhere.
Yeah, for sure.
So the next one, comparison to others. Compare and despair. We talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
That will erode your confidence fast.
In a
It'll
hot
erode
minute.
confidence you didn't even build yet.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll be in negative confidence for sure.
Right. It's such a thief of joy. Like,
Yeah.
that is a saying for a reason. It is so fruitless, and yet it's so common to think, well, and I get that. I definitely get that. I've always been someone, I hate how many rare things we have going on here. And I always want to be like, well, how is it going for, like, what do other people experience? How
Mm.
long does other people's remodels last? Or, like, I do look for it for comfort sometimes. I look for
Yeah.
comparison
Yeah.
to know, like,
Yep.
are we in a normal range here?
Yep.
However, everyone's situation is unique. You will never know what's really going on for people. And so you're only comparing to their highlights. It's going to erode your confidence, and you haven't even built it yet. So
Yeah.
stop
And
that.
no two people's, yes, just stop. No, I mean, that's absolutely it. If I think we've talked about this again, probably when we talked about compare and despair, but I'll never forget hearing Carrie Peters tell the story. And I feel like she might even just reposted this recently about, even her. And for those of you who haven't maybe listened a while back to our pod, when we had Carrie on, she's one of our mentors. And she talked about comparing and despairing with another mompreneur, for lack of a better word, and thinking, oh, that woman seems to have it all under control and all good to go. And then she took a step back and thought, am I willing to do all the things she's doing? And if I'm not, then I can't compare, because it is not apples to apples. Nobody's life is apples to apples, but I think that's a great stopgap measure. You're looking at I was just on with a client and a friend of mine, and my friend has built an amazing online business in network marketing through social media. And my client is just starting out. And at the end, I said, I just want to make sure we're presencing the fact that please do not compare yourself to where Tammy is. She's been doing this for 7 years, and she makes it look easy now, but that's not where you're at. We all agreed that we were fine, because it is really easy to think that's what I want, and I must not be doing the right things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next one's major life changes. Yeah, I mean, that can throw you for a loop.
Yeah.
For me, moving out to LA, I was excited, right? But we've talked about for my kids, I mean, that was really I mean, that threw them both for a loop. Liam was very verbal about it. I think Charlotte was more internal about it. I mean, she told me recently, it wasn't that recent. It was 3 or 4 months ago. It was maybe over the holidays. And she, for some reason, had a major panic attack. And it was at night. And we were in here. And I'd never actually witnessed what a panic attack looked like. And it was interesting to watch. I mean, she couldn't stop moving. She was so antsy. And at one point, she got up to go get something, came back. It was like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I should have just stayed in here. It was crazy to watch. And then she told me she had one of those almost every day in middle school. And I was like, wait, what? And middle school's a shit show anyways, but it's just, we picked up our kids in the midst of their life, and brought them out here. And obviously they're doing fantastic now, but it was rough.
Yeah. I mean, I've got to believe the way you and Darren conducted yourselves helped them. And you guys probably had your own, newness situation happening.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I look at that and I think, oh my gosh, yes. When we just got married, we also moved to a brand new city and knew nobody. So here I was
Is
like,
that when you moved to New Orleans or when you moved to Portland?
Nashville. We were in New Orleans when we got engaged. We moved to, we moved to Nashville, dropped our stuff, flew home. Is that what we did? Yeah. Like I went to the airport in Nashville right after we dropped our stuff there, flew home to get married.
And it's so funny, Darren and I did almost the same thing. We were only in Chicago 3 months.
Go back to Nashville and unpack in a place I don't know anybody. And, looking for a new job.
Yep.
Meeting new people, new identity as a wife. And then I was like, am I Carrie Carroll? No, I don't think I'm going to be Carrie Carroll. I don't know. I think I'm going to be Carrie Moore. And so like all kinds of identity things happen. And I went through it again when I had a kid. As much as I was in love with this kid, I was like, well, who am I now? So like, definitely, confidence in like how I was stepping into this like new identity was shaken. Like I didn't have any confidence because I didn't know what it was yet.
Yeah.
So I think about that. Or I told you I'm the biggest dork. And on another episode, when we talk about what we're watching, I watch things that were out a long time ago that everyone told me I should watch, but I didn't. And I don't watch them well. I watch them while I'm doing other things. But on The Good Wife, if anyone's ever seen it, when she she wins state's attorney, but then it gets taken away from her and she doesn't have her job anymore. She's not a partner anymore. And she doesn't even want to practice law. And you're like, what? You're watching it like, what? You're so good. And she's like, she used the words like crisis of confidence. I don't know if I do this anymore. Right. So like anything can jar your identity and make you question if you're confident enough to do what you've been doing really well.
Yeah.
But major life changes. Dang.
They're rough.
Okay. Imposter syndrome triggers. There's a lot of great YouTube videos out there and probably TikToks about, or reels for us middle-aged women, about imposter syndrome and how it's not a real thing. They'll be like, no, there's no such thing, but it is a thing. Like it is a way to identify how people feel. This feeling of being a fraud, despite the evidence of success. You and I have coached many people who have like accomplished incredible things and are at very high levels who are like, I don't know what I'm doing. Or, like I feel like any day they're going to say, nope, and take it away. And I'm sure I have felt this way. It's been a little while, so I would have to think about it for a second. But yeah, this part, like being praised for one's work, receiving accolades and not feeling like, ooh, like, maybe that it was easier than they think it was. So then you start to tell yourself, oh, I don't deserve it. That I can relate to. Yeah. I will diminish what's trying to be given to me and praised on me with like that imposter syndrome. And then if luckily, this isn't something I've experienced deeply in a long time, but I know what it can do. It leads exactly to that like lack of confidence, and it starts to show up in the next thing you do because you weren't working on your ability to receive whatever was being given to you around the appreciation or the noticing or the admiration of what you did. And it's sneaky, that whole like fraud fear.
I think you just, okay. So to go back to it's not real thing. I mean, there is a whole really, really good commencement speech from, I think last year, around
It's a woman,
imposter
right?
Yes. And I
Yes, I
follow her
saw it.
on
Yes.
Facebook. She's amazing. I can't remember her name, so I'll try
She's
to
like, let's
find
just
her.
be done with this. Let's just be
Well,
done.
she
I love
talks
it.
about,
Yeah.
I'll truncate it, but she talks about how imposter syndrome came out, that phrase came out around in the 70s when women were really starting to truly be in the workplace. And so then she talks about the last time something was a very specifically a woman thing. And I know men who have imposter syndrome, but it's a great, the short story is there was something called bicycle face back in like around the suffragette movement. And what it was women for the first time could ride bicycles and go around and teach and learn and try to get the vote.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden women were struck with bicycle face, and it was flushed and your hair was messed up and you were sweaty, so you had bicycle face, and it was a malady that only women had.
Wow.
No, you were riding a bicycle. So I think
Ridiculous.
I think it's interesting around the idea that imposter syndrome, the phrase, came out when women were starting to get into the workforce wholeheartedly. I know men that suffer from imposter syndrome. I think we all do, because it's what you're talking about, which is that inability to receive the praise that you're getting, and so you feel like a fraud. What
Undeserving. Mhm.
undeserving. What irritates, once I heard that speech and I really thought about it, I thought that's so interesting, because women claim imposter syndrome so that they can be paralyzed by it, or
Mm.
it gives them an excuse. I feel like a fraud. I feel like an imposter.
Mhm.
And so if we realize that it's not a real thing and there's a way to work around it, I
Mhm.
mean, when you talk about my clients feeling more confident, it's because I work through this and I show them
Mhm.
all the way they've been successful their entire life, which then leads to what they're being successful in
Like
now.
there are receipts, there is proof. Yeah.
There's receipts. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of different types of experiences that can be labeled imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Definitely when you are in the minority in any way in a professional setting
Yep.
or in a residential setting or something like that, there's going to there's going to feel like there's a misrepresentation kind of feeling. That's real.
Oh
That's a
yeah.
different type of thing than the undeserving thing, shit going on in your head. And both are real if you're
Totally.
experiencing them.
Yep.
And sometimes those two things compound each other. So
Yeah.
I think it's definitely something to look at when you're not feeling confident. Like, how much are you doing that to yourself? And,
Right.
you know, yeah. Um, this next one sounds a little bit like criticism or negative feedback, but I see it slightly differently, which is rejection or failure to meet expectations. I look at this as like somebody I work with who did not get the promotion someone else did, and they thought they were going to get it. Um, and then really like shattered and shook their foundation, and really started thinking, oh, maybe I need more school, like more education, maybe I need more training, like really took it as a blow, and didn't really go ask like what was this, like and so there's always, like we've said a couple of times here, there's an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
And I remember um in one of Malcolm Gladwell's books, which one was it, where they talked about, oh my gosh, I don't think it's 10,000 hours. I think it was
Don't
something,
ask
it's
me.
not that one, but one of Malcolm Gladwell's books. I'll remember it by the time we're done, hopefully. Like talked about like the way, like different ways to respond to learning. Like they look at like Pete
Mm.
Sampras versus John McEnroe, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you can or Lee Iacocca versus Steve Jobs,
Yeah.
right? You can
Yeah.
look at like failure, or you can respond to it a certain way, or you can put your head in the sand and like, just keep going that direction. You can like stay really focused like this, or you can like see a failure to meet expectations as an opportunity to say, what do I need to learn to do differently next time? Right.
Yeah.
So the amount of people who get a certain grade and decide, oh, I'm not good at that, versus the ones who are like, okay, I got to get an A next time. So how
Right.
do I do it? Right.
Right.
Everything's an opportunity.
Yeah.
When when we were working with people on like how to start attracting clients, it's like there's no fixed information here. Something's going to not work. Keep
Yep.
adjusting.
Yep.
So I think like that is where like a certain number of people are going to experience a rejection or failure to meet expectations or not get something. And they're going to say, well, I wasn't good enough. That wasn't for me. That might not even be a crisis of confidence. It might just be like an identity thing.
You're right. Yeah.
And leave. And the other people are like, ouch, I'm not feeling very confident. How do I get more confident?
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. And I also think, you know, going back to sort of the idea around getting clients, you can't not have something work out the first time and assume you've blown it too. You know, I mean, whether it's talking about getting a promotion or marketing yourself or whatever it might be, sometimes it needs a little traction too, you know. And so it's I think that's again goes back to that something you sort of said earlier, which is when something doesn't meet your expectation, what would you like to see more of the next time? You know, instead of assuming that it's, oh, I'm just throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? It's like, okay, well, this didn't work this way. What can I tweak?
Yeah, what can I fine tune? Yeah.
What can I fine tune? You know, what can I just do a little bit differently? Or in a bigger scenario, like a promotion, it's like, what skills didn't I meet? You know, and having those conversations, they're not fun, but it's worthy for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump to the next one, then maybe you can come back to 7 because obviously we're both going through this right now, but health issues. I'm not going through it anymore. But yeah, I mean, we already said it at the if you're not watching YouTube, Kari just leaned back to stretch. But I'll tell you, I mean, again, there's no question in my mind that what triggered my crisis of confidence was my sheer exhaustion and pain-filled life, you know. And it just, and especially when it's chronic and you don't really know the end of it, or you don't, even me, I mean, I knew where mine was ending. And it's still, you just get in those moments where it's like, will I ever be well? And if I'm not well, then how can I ever do A, B, C, or D? You know, so I'm just going to lay in bed. I'm just not going to do it, you know? Yeah. So that's a brutal one for sure.
I'm so glad that that part's past you. I know that you have healing you're still doing, but it's all uphill here, literally.
Yes.
I would say, like, when I'm looking at this, yes, I don't feel my Zazazu self when I'm like, I can't lift this arm and I can't, like, what the hell? It's just bizarre. Like, you know, it's humbling. It's humbling, and humble, it doesn't go really well with like confident, but it can. I look at this when I was thinking health issues, I was also thinking about PTSD, which I'm overly familiar with.
Yeah.
In fact, I was one of the topics I was going to suggest to us also at some point is have someone on to talk about complex PTSD, because
I'd love that.
It's definitely something I relate to, because we don't have a past trauma, we have an ongoing trauma,
right?
And a lot of people can relate to that, I think. But I think the PTSD, because you know, and it's different for how different members of my family are experiencing it, but it's the reliving of something. And that can really erode hope, which is very closely linked to confidence.
Yep.
And it is, it's an interesting thing. Like, you really have to work on it and compartmentalize it. And like, you know, you kind of have to like be really loving with it, give it a lot of space, do a lot of breath work around it, and then like work on confidence separate from that, while you can trust you're tending to the PTSD. But it's an interesting thing, because it can all just sort of come in like a cloud, which we're really familiar with in Portland, but it's gorgeous right now. And it just kind of rains on everything, including your confidence, and it makes you not want to try.
Yeah.
So I think anybody experiencing PTSD, like, be really kind to yourself around that stuff. That doesn't mean anything about you. It just means you've experienced something that's coloring your opinion of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
The one we skipped was conflict or turmoil in relationships. I think we've both witnessed this a lot, and I know I've experienced it too. I know, definitely, where, you know, the way someone communicates with us really can erode our confidence and our self-identity. I know we're
Yeah.
cracking each other up a little bit. But I like watch, like I've watched so many of my friends, and female and male, but I'm thinking of a couple of female friends right now, really aren't confident that they know how to attract the right person because, they divorced a certain type of person, they've dated a similar type of person, and now they're
Yeah.
like, I don't even trust myself.
Yeah.
And confidence has a lot to do with trust, right?
Yes.
I've also seen people, try to work it out and come back together, and ooh, that's tough because you are experiencing a lot of, not just imagined criticism and lack of trust, like you are coming up against it, and that,
Yeah.
I mean, that's heroic, and it's not for wimps, and it is
Nope.
not easy. And I've seen it like change people, at least for a
Yeah.
while, where they're just like this puny version of themselves. So yeah, a lot of love for
Yep.
that.
Definitely. I think let's
It's so much self-questioning, I think,
yeah,
and that's,
always,
yeah.
yeah. Because, and then it goes back to one of the next ones is the lack of support or resources, feeling unsupported. And I mean, those kind of in those relationships. So it kind of ties with that, right? Like you can, if you're not feeling validated or supported, or, you're being told from a myriad of people, like, if you're getting, why aren't you working this out? Why are you working this out? Why do you keep dating those same types of people? Like, if you're not getting, if you don't have people around you to support and witness you and not necessarily give advice, it can, you can fall down a rabbit hole of feeling completely defeated
Oh yeah.
in lots of realms, not just relationships, jobs,
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
You need the reflection from people who are willing to be honest and also really loving, because you're not going to
Right.
be that way with yourself.
Yep.
I don't know if we skip this one, is I really relate to
Okay.
financial
Yeah.
instability.
The last one.
When you're in debt, facing financial challenges, unemployment, economic downturns, oh, the identity that, like, I've been there, like,
Mm-hmm.
in those times in my life where I'm like, what does this mean about me? Maybe I don't know how to, like,
Yeah.
just, um, oh yeah, I've seen that where people are just extra hard on themselves and a lot less confident at pulling themselves out of it.
Yeah.
A lot of shame goes in with that, and
Yes.
shame really erodes confidence.
Yeah, it really does. The last one, it's not on here, but you sort of you've said a couple of different things. One of my favorite analogies that I've ever heard is, when you're thinking about confidence, is when you let yourself down. If you say, and I'm going to use a very trite example, but it's just an easy one that we can all kind of giggle at. But we've all been there of, I'm going to start the diet on Monday. I'm going to start the diet on Monday, right? And then Monday comes, and for whatever reason, you don't. Disclaimer, Kari and I could not give two shits what you weigh. This is just a trite example.
Yeah.
But fill in the blank, whatever you say you're going to do, and then you don't do it.
Work out. Yeah.
Yeah, you've now, it's the example I heard back in the day was like, you have a friend, you say you're going to pick them up at the airport, you don't pick them up, that friend will probably give you another chance. You don't pick them up at the airport the second, third time, they're going to stop asking because they don't trust you anymore. They have no confidence that you're going to do that. Even if you think you're the only person who knows you're not doing whatever you said you were going to do, you're not starting the diet, you're not reading the book, you're not going for the walks, whatever it is, you are slowly but surely losing trust in yourself because you keep letting yourself down. And trust and confidence are synonymous. So if you don't trust yourself, you don't have the confidence that you can continue to do that. So even if you go out and fail spectacularly, you've done it. There is a modicum, even within that failure, of confidence, because you at least tried. And that's huge.
I really love that.
Yeah, I heard that a long time ago, and I was like, oh my God, that is the best way of looking at how we ruin our own confidence, our own self,
Yeah.
in the simple act of not doing what we say we're going to do for ourselves. And we think nobody cares because we're the only one that's affecting. but it's affecting us not only because we're not doing it, but because it's also just slicing our confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I say a lot all the time, like the way to build confidence is do it. And I know
yep.
that's not as easily done as said in certain ways. However, it is true,
Mhm.
like from all the examples you've given today, that if you focus on something and you take it one step at a time, you're doing it. And
Yeah.
you're going to feel more hopeful and more confident if you show up for yourself.
Yep.
So I love, you said it more beautifully than that, but it is really that simple. We get it. And you might be suffering from two things. If the crisis of confidence turns into lack of self-esteem and some really
Yeah.
shitty self-talk,
Yep.
then you've got two things to work on, and they can't be accomplished in the same act, but they can be worked on the same time, right?
Yep.
Get confidence from doing, self-esteem by being with yourself, doing something you love for no other reason but to just,
To
remind
celebrate
yourself
that
you're
you're,
lovable.
yeah, and to celebrate that you're doing the things.
Yes,
I
exactly.
mean,
So
that's why
it's
you and I start our sessions with our clients with celebrations,
yeah.
because right then you get to acknowledge what you have done, because every client wants to come in and tell me what they haven't done. And I'm like, whoa, whoa,
Oh
whoa,
yeah.
let's start with a celebration. And every time, I mean, I have worked with people for years, and every time I get on a call, so what are we celebrating today? Oh, that's right.
That's right,
Like, oh
right?
my
Yeah,
God.
that takes so much longer, but I'll get a whole prep form
Longer.
full of all the things that are bad.
Yep.
I have one
Yep.
client who is like, oh yeah, and she loves when I ask what her celebrations are, because suddenly she's like, six things. I thought there was one, but there's like six
Yeah.
things, and
It's
then this,
so
and then
fun.
I go, well, what about this? She's like, seven.
I love it. It is the best. It is one of my favorite parts of the job, for sure. No question.
I do love it.
So you picked a good song. Are we ready to move into that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't pull it up, so I'm going to let you quote it. Although
I'm pulling it up.
if you do follow us on Instagram, you know that I use this song quite a bit because it comes up as a suggestion a lot, and I really, really do love it. So it's Unstoppable by Sia, and I'm going to let
Okay,
Kari read
let
the
me
lyrics.
see. I just had it and then I clicked out of it. Okay. I'll do it till the sun goes down and wait, no, sorry. I'll smile. I know what it takes to fool this town. I'll do it till the sun goes down and all through the nighttime. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'll tell you what you want to hear. Keep my sunglasses on while I shed a tear. It's never the right time. I put my armor on, show you how strong I am. I put my armor on. I'll show you that I am
Unstoppable.
unstoppable.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
that song. It's what the kids call a banger.
Okay, can I add something here to, like, I was laughing to myself about confidence, and I was like, the things, like the funny things about, aging and having kids who love to tease us. I mean, nothing will help you get thicker skin than having kids like
Nope.
ours,
Yep. No kidding.
because there are,
They're
like, they have
brutal.
that version of us, and it's like, ugh. But it's like, I remember being a pretty confident dancer, not anymore. Like,
Well, nope, me neither. That's why I don't go dancing with my
I'm
kids.
not really confident about, or
You and
about
I,
music.
though,
Like, yeah,
you and I, we can, we can
we
bust
can
a
burn it
move
up. We
when
have.
your neck gets better. Now that I got a hip, you gotta get
Ouch.
your neck better, so we got and
Our
dance.
our bridesmaids move hurts my neck.
Oh
Oh, I got to work on that. I'll work
no.
on
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
And just music, right? Like my knowledge
Yeah.
of music. There was just a time where I just knew so much, and it was their
Mhm.
source of everything, and now, like, they're mine. So
Well,
my confidence around anything, as somebody said something about hip or stylish, I'm like, I don't know the last time I felt either of those things, but that's okay.
that's
I don't know
hilarious.
anyone who has like teenagers who feels those things.
I'm gonna say I do. So going back to my
Yeah, good
confidence
for you.
thing, I do feel, but my kids are good about that. But that's funny you say the thing about music, because this, as we're recording this week, this topic is kids these days. And so I reached out to Liam because I wanted to use Gen Z songs. And like I knew a couple, I need to pull Billie Eilish, but I texted him yesterday and I was like, can you give me like 5 Gen Z songs? And he's like, what do you mean by Gen Z songs? I'm like, if I knew what I meant, I wouldn't be asking you. So, and then as soon as he sent them to me, I'm like, oh yeah. Olivia Rodrigo. Yeah. What's her name? Sabrina Carpenter. whatever. The ones he sent me, I was like, oh, of course these are. But to me, the only person I could come up with was Billie Eilish.
Oh my God. That's
So
so
yeah,
good.
yeah. I got all my new music at this point is pretty much from Liam and Charlotte. So, but and Charlotte gives me shit when I listen to her music. At least Liam likes it. He he brings me in
Yeah.
and wants me to be part of it. But that's the difference too between Liam and Charlotte. I was thinking about that this morning. I thought talking about confidence, just and I'll end on this. Like I was thinking about how um whenever I compliment Liam, he is very good at receiving. I'll tell him like, oh my God, this piece of art's amazing, blah, blah, blah. And he is really good at receiving. And Charlotte never like really accepts it. Like she might say thanks, but there's a block. And I think I have it too. It's a deflect, right? So if I get a compliment, not necessarily about my looks or my style or anything like that, but something that maybe means more to me, like working with my clients or whatever. If somebody reflects back to me, you do this often, and you probably see me do it. I'm always like, oh well, it's their success, like so I kind of see where Charlotte gets it. But I was just reflecting on that this morning, and I wasn't even thinking about it in terms of this, but receiving
Do you
again is
notice
huge.
what I've learned to do with you is just give you another serving after you do that?
No, I
If you were to
haven't
go back through
noticed.
text, I'll be like, well, they were lucky you were there, coach. You know what I mean? Like
You
I
do
will,
do that.
I do like, I'm just like another spoon.
I didn't notice that, but I will be aware of that at this point. That's hilarious. And then you see me just sort of shut down.
I just was realizing one of those things of like thinking of her song and like the fake it till you make it was that great TED talk on posture and how you can trick your brain into confidence when you need to feel it,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
because we talk about like acting as if it's not faking it if you can like really step into that future version of you to borrow some of that confidence. We call that
Yeah.
resourcing, right?
Yeah.
But that power pose,
Yeah.
how, and I practiced it with my kids when they were like having to get in front of the class in like fourth and fifth grade. And I remember I was like on a subway in New York and I was watching live on FaceTime, love technology, when Griffin was doing his little presentation. He stood in front of the class like this and he was like, got done with his presentation. He went, questions or comments? Like it was just the
That's
greatest
amazing.
thing. And then I thought about it. I was like, I gotta really start using that. Like before I got in front of people to speak, I'd go in the bathroom, like close the door and they'd be like, just
Questions or
stand there with
comments?
your hands on your hips.
Yeah.
Questions or comments?
Yeah. I mean, the power,
Yeah.
it sounds it and the time when you learn that it feels sort of ridiculous and like, is that gonna really work? But I mean, that's energetically taking up space,
Works. Yeah.
owning that you are supposed to be there.
Right. And
So,
I think one of the examples was like when you're waiting for an interview, should you be looking down at your phone or at your paper, or should you look around or like have a paper, like open, like literally open
yeah.
your body? It will trick your brain into feeling like I'm confident enough to feel like anything can come at me. Anyway, it's
Well, I feel
fascinating
like
stuff.
even though we haven't confirmed this off camera, I'm going to confirm it for us now. I think next week we should just absolutely, our next week's topic is going to be the books we go to,
Yeah.
because mine is one of mine. I have two, but one of mine is the Confidence Code for Women. So we can kind of continue this conversation next week. But this wraps up June, which was sort of all about, as I said, all about kind of starting over and what that entails and what that looks like, the endings and beginnings and so forth. So I love how we sometimes unwittingly have a theme for a month, but I think
know.
next month for July, we're going to just do fun things.
Yes. Fun
Okay.
things, because July's a fun month,
It is a
especially
fun month.
birthdays.
It's my birthday
Yeah.
month. All right,
well,
everyone.
thank you.
Thank you so much as usual for listening to the things we know. And we would love to know if any of these tips or if any of this landed for you. I'd be surprised if it didn't. So feel free to DM us on Instagram or Facebook. And of course, you can always email us at the things we know podcast 23@gmail.com.
Yes. And tell us what helps you feel more confident. We'd love to hear that.
Because that's all we want for everyone in the world is be more confident. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you next
Bye.
week. Bye.